Hello, this is the TradeSight Forex Market Preview and International Economic Data Roadmap for the week beginning Sunday, the 10th of November, going into Friday, the 15th of November, which already will take us through halfway through November. Let's take a look at the dollar index daily chart to start. We did make it 9 bars up. We were looking for an upward move over the last week or two. Did get it. Looks stronger than weaker, but we are in general mid-range for the last several months, going back to the middle of the year. I'm going to back this chart out a little bit just to show you that for the year so far. Let's flip this to a weekly chart and have a look. This shows you now all of 2013, 2012. This has been a very narrow range for the dollar, basically in a 5-point range since the beginning of 2002 all the way till now, which is pretty unusual, really. I mean, if you look at it, we had 9 points of range on the dollar in 2011. If I slide back even further so we can see a few years before that, here's 2010 where we had 12 points of range. Another one where we had about 17 points of range. So again, this is part of what the problem has been with the Forex market, is that the trading's been a little slow just because the overall action in the currencies has been fairly contained. We need some kind of big global event that shifts the balance of powers between currencies, get some things moving again to really get the bigger moves that we like to see from a Forex perspective, so we can sort of ride those moves. That's how our training system works for Forex. Is we do everything. We try to make some money every day if we can, but really we like to capture some of the bigger, broader moves as they occur, and they aren't occurring. I mean, it's that simple. And the ranges have been poor too, and we'll talk about that again in a moment. So here's the euro dollar chart. You can see we had touched that static trend line, the red line, and then this week we finally broke that. So just like the dollar index, that puts us back in sort of a mid-range area there. Here's the pound dollar, flat for the last month and a half. Do have a 13 seeker sell signal in place there, which so far has been the top of that range. That's not unusual either. And then here's the Aussie dollar where the 13 nailed it. You can see the risk line off of that, rolled over from there. This is the static trend line, this red line of that move. We are approaching that now. And let's show you the New Zealand while we're at it, because that had a similar signal, 13 sell signal. But you'll notice this one, static trend line's way back here. That would be a lot of strength in the dollar. It's kind of a head and shoulders formation also. So a break under .8200 on the New Zealand dollar looks really poor for the New Zealand dollar, obviously, and good for the dollar index. So we'll be keeping an eye on all that. Let's look at the action during the week here. Here's the dollar index first of all, and you can see the spikes that we had on the data that we had late in the week, the rate announcements out of Europe, and then the which also came with the GDP number, by the way, and then the unemployment rate and NFP data on Friday moved the market a little bit. So those were basically the spikes. Let's talk about what those ranges translated into for the major pairs that we follow. Here's the euro dollar for the week. You can see there's the start of last week, closed out last week at just under 1.3500, closed out this week at just under 1.3370 or so. So lost 130 pips. What was the total range for the week? High to low about 240. That includes some spikes. And unfortunately, here's the problem. This is what we don't like to see. We've got the first 3 days of the week, the total range was 100 pips, less than 100 pips, maybe exactly 100 pips. And that continued into the fourth day. And then we get this big spike on the data that was in favor of the dollar, and then a little retracement. So the first 3 days, you can see largely flat, not much going on. That's not really the type of trading that we like to see. Here's the New Zealand dollar during the week, about less than 200 pips of range. Here's the Aussie dollar during the week. And again, just until that late push, it really only had about 100 pips of range the entire week. The Aussie was trading a little better about a month back. And here's the pound, which did trade 200 pips of range and had a couple extra moves. We made some money this week on the pound, but overall the ranges are not spectacular, and so we will remain, or I'm going to remain anyways, half size until I see better signs of life out of the market. So we've been half size now for a couple months, just like what happened last year, only this time I would think things could start to break free a little soon, but they just haven't yet. All right, let's review the economic data that's coming out for the week so we're all on the same page about what the focus is. We've got Japan's, remember everybody's gone through their time changes now, so we've got Japan's current account and bank lending, Australia's home loans, China's new loans and money supply. That's all Sunday. Monday, Japan economy watchers sentiment. Got a bank holiday out of Europe, US, and Canada. Now, keep in mind, this is a bank holiday here in the US. The stock market is open. Forex is not. So Forex is probably going to be dead. We may not make calls Sunday going into Monday because of the bank holiday, but the stock market will be open for those that trade stocks. Italian industrial production, Europe's got a speech. Tertiary industry activity out of Japan, and M2 money supply or money stock out of Japan. We've got business confidence out of Australia, the Rhines HPI out of New Zealand, and the 30-year bond auction out of Japan Monday night. Going into Tuesday, where we also have consumer confidence, preliminary machine tool orders, Germany's final CPI and WPI. Look at this: UK CPI, PPI, RPI, HPI. How many PIs can you release at once? They dump them all out of the UK. And then the CB leading index. This is all Tuesday morning early. Notice we've had basically no U.S. data to this point. NFIB small business index out of the U.S. That's not a big deal Tuesday morning. Financial stability report, FPI out of New Zealand. Westpac consumer sentiment, Australia's number coming Tuesday night. Core machinery orders in the CGPI out of Japan. Wage price index out of Australia. Foreign direct investment out of China. Then we jump to Wednesday in the early hours of the morning. You've got the key unemployment data out of the UK. You've got industrial production out of Europe. You've got some B of E inflation reports. That's the Bank of England at 5:30 a.m. Eastern time on Wednesday before the U.S. stock market opens. Crude oil inventories, 10-year bond auction, Fed budget balance. Again, those are the first data points out of the U.S. Here this week. Retail sales out of New Zealand and their business manufacturing index. Preliminary GDP out of Japan Wednesday night. MI inflation expectations out of Australia. Bernanke speaking somewhere at 7 p.m. Eastern time Wednesday night. New motor vehicle sales, revised industrial production out of Japan. The vehicle sales out of Australia. And then we look at GDP numbers out of various parts of Europe. We've got the French CPI, their GDP, German GDP, PPI out of Switzerland, the ECB monthly bulletin, the Italian preliminary GDP, UK's retail sales, Europe's flash GDP, trade balance out of Canada. Remember, this is Thursday morning, and out of the US. That's one of our big three each week, so we'll be half size, or even less than half size in this case, ahead of that. The usual unemployment claims and non-farm productivity. We have testimony from the potential new Fed chairperson, which is Yellen, 10 a.m. Eastern time on Friday. Bank of Canada's review, natty gas, 30-year bond auction. Jump to the wee hours of Friday morning. Italian trade balance, CPI out of Europe, manufacturing sales out of Canada that morning, and we wrap up Friday with the Empire State Manufacturing Index, import and export prices, capacity utilization, industrial production, and wholesale inventories, all that out of the U.S. So again, trade balance is the big number that we'll be focused on. The other thing this week is you've got options expiration. It's not triple expiration, has less impact on Forex than it does on stocks. And of course, Monday's a bank holiday, so there will be no Forex calls Sunday evening, although we will post the levels. Everybody have a great trading week. We will be trading it here in the lab as usual from Tradesight using e-signals charts. Have a good night.